Hello everyone. Today let us revise second chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So flower it is said to be a fascinating organ of angiosperm. Human beings have intimate relationship with flowers for aesthetic use, ornamental, social, religious and cultural value. In pujas also we use the flowers, ornamental, that is in garden we keep the flowering plants. Then uses it is used as symbols for conveying human feelings such as love, affection, happiness, grief and mourning. Then what is inflorescence? The arrangement of flowers on the peduncle is called as inflorescence. The flower is the reproductive unit in the angiosperm for sexual reproduction. So flower is for sexual reproduction in angiosperm. Thalamus or receptacle, the expanded and swollen tip of the floral axis is called as thalamus, on which other whorls are present. Then pedicel, the stalk like lower portion, it is called as pedicel. Then the four whorls of the flowers. The four whorls are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Accessory whorls, they are calyx and corolla. So calyx, it is green in nature and green in color and protect the flower in bud stage. Its units are called as sepals. Corolla, it is colored to attract the insect for pollination. Its units are called as petals. Androecium, the unit will be called as stamen and it is the male reproductive structure, while gynoecium, its units are called as carpel. It is the female reproductive structure. So if we see in the diagram, then these are the sepals, green in color for protection. These are the petals for attracting the insect for pollination. Then these are the stamens and this one is the carpel, or also we can call it as pistil. And this swollen portion is called as thalamus and this stalk like structure will be called as pedicel and below it will be peduncle. Then stamen, the long and slender structure, the long and slender stalk like structure is called as filament. Its terminal part is bilobe structure which is called as anther and proximal end of filament is attached to the thalamus or petal, this proximal end. Number of stamen and its length varies from flower to flower. So anther is there, filament is there and this is called as connective. So that is the male reproductive part of the flower. In the diagram, this one is anther, this one is filament and this one is connective. Now structure of anther. It is bilobe structure. Each lobe have two theca. These are the two thecas that is present. It is also called as dithecus. Longitudinal groove run lengthwise. This is the longitudinal groove which will run lengthwise. Anther is four-sided tetragonal structure. Have four microsporangia. So it is having four sides and four microsporangia are present. Microsporangia develop further and become pollen sac packed with pollen grains. So this will further develop pollen grains. So this is the diagram of pollen or anther. Anther which is bilobe structure, two thecas are present, longitudinal groove is present and four microsporangia are present. Now let us see the structure of microsporangium. In TS, transverse section, microsporangium appears nearly circular in outline. It is surrounded by four walls, that is epidermis, endothecium, middle layer and tapetum. The function of outer three walls is protection and help in dehiscence of the anther to release the pollen, while tapetum nourishes the developing pollen grain. So tapetum have dense cytoplasm and have more than one nucleus. So four layers are there: epidermis, endothecium, middle layer and tapetum. So these three layer, epidermis, endothecium and middle layer are for protection, while tapetum is for nourishment. This tissue is called as sporogenous tissue. Then describe microsporogenesis. So sporogenous tissue, as the anther develop, the cells of the sporogenous tissue undergo meiotic division and form microspore tetrad. So this is called as sporogenous tissue, which will undergo meiosis and it will further develop into microspore tetrad. So this is also called as pollen mother cell. Each cell of the sporogenous tissue is capable of giving rise to a microspore tetrad. So this cell, which is sporogenous tissue, or you can say pollen mother cell, they are 2n diploid. So they will undergo meiosis and it will give rise to the microspore tetrad. Therefore each one is a potential pollen or a microspore mother cell or pollen mother cell, which will undergo meiosis and will give rise to microspore tetrad. So the process of formation of microspore from a pollen mother cell through meiosis is called as microsporogenesis. Now what is the ploidy of microspore tetrad? The ploidy of the cell of the microspore tetrad is haploid. That is, ploidy means number of chromosomes. So pollen mother cell is diploid, that is 2n. So it undergoes meiosis. So the ploidy of microspore tetrad will be haploid. Then microspore tetrad. The microspore formed are arranged in the cluster of 4 cells, the microspore tetrad. So in this one is the microsporangium, in which this microspore tetrad will be formed. They are in the cluster of 4 cells. Pollen grains, as the anther mature and dehydrate, the microspore dissociate from each other and develop into pollen grains. So this tetrad then will separate and it will give rise to pollen grains due to dehydration. So in each microsporangium, thousands of microspore or pollen grains are formed, which will be released by the dehiscence of the anther. So when this anther dehydrates, thousands of pollen grains will be released. Then the structure of pollen grain. The pollen grain represent the male gametophyte. Shape of the pollen grain is spherical, while size is 25 to 50 micrometers in diameter. It has 2 prominent layers called as exine, which is made up of sporopollenin. The characteristic of this sporopollenin is most resistant organic material. It can withstand high temperature, strong acid and alkali. No enzyme can degrade sporopollenin. Therefore, pollen grains can be preserved as fossils. Exine has apertures called as jump pore, where sporopollenin is absent. So in pollen grains, 2 layers are present. Outermost is exine. In between it is having the aperture, which is called as jump pore, where sporopollenin will be absent. Inner layer is called as intine. The inner layer, that is intine, it is thin and continuous layer made up of cellulose and pectin. So here in the diagram, vacuoles will be present, then exine wall is present, intine wall is present, exine which is made up of sporopollenin, intine which is made up of cellulose and pectin, cytoplasm will be there, plasma membrane is there, nucleus is there in the pollen grains. Now mature pollen grain contains 2 cells, that is vegetative cell and generative cell. Vegetative cell is bigger, has abundant food reserve, has large irregular shaped nucleus. So this pollen grain will be having large one vegetative cell and the smaller one is called as generative cell. So which is having irregularly shaped nucleus. While generative cell, it is small, floats in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. It is spindle shaped with dense cytoplasm and a nucleus. So pollen grain will be having 2 cells, that is vegetative cell and generative cell. Thank you.